Hi there everyone, welcome to STEM Lockdown Digital School. This is for our grade 12s and I am the presenter, Lelani Legransi. So at the end of this lesson, this is really preparing you for question 3 for the final exam, the practical exam this year. And I'm going to teach you how to create an object class and create methods within this class. And then we're going to make use of these methods in our main form. So let's just quickly talk about what is an object. So I have a picture here of an edit box on the screen, and this is an object that we can see. So an object has certain properties, like for example, it has in your object inspector the visible property that we can set to true, the width to 1 to 1. So these are the attributes or the properties of this object. And then with this object, the edit boxes have methods as well. And they are procedures in this case that will perform a certain function. So .clear will clear it, and then set focus will put the cursor into that edit box. I'm going to go through these steps with you, showing you how to do this. But if you're watching this at a later stage, I'd like you to press pause when we have done a certain part of this so that you can try it yourself. So your first step is to create a form. So just a normal form with these objects on them. And then to create the class, we're going to click on File, New, and Unit. Now, ideally, you should save your form first, and then you open your unit. Else you have to go in here, project, add to project, and so on, which is just tedious. So if I go File, Save All now, it's going to give me the option to save this. I have saved this before, so I'm going to show you this one later, but you're going to start with the prefix CLS. I'm just going to call it book 2, as I have one already, underscore U, because it's a unit that we create. And this class is going to contain a certain object. So after interface, you type, and then you are going to push Control J, search for class, and I want you to select class C. So here at the top where it says T my class, we're going to change that to T books. And I want you to delete this that you don't recognize, protected, we haven't used, publish destructor, as well as override, but leave the constructor create there. So our first steps is to declare our variables of our class. I'm going to move over to my completed class. So if you're opening a program, you will see here that you can find in your project manager, you can find your classes that is linked to this program. So by double clicking on that, it will open this class. And in here, these are the variables that we are going to create. These variables are referred to as fields or attributes. They are referred to as being encapsulated because they're declared under private. And anything under private can only be accessed by this class and not by our main form. So this part of the code is often given to you in an exam, and it's good to have a look at what their data types is before you continue. So the constructor that we're going to create is usually the first method, and then the question would read something like this: write a constructor that will receive. Now receive is very important. That indicates the number of parameters that you need. So here I can see I'm receiving 1, 2, 3, 4 parameters. And to determine what data type they need to be, you need to go and have a look at your class and see in here what are the data types here of the fields, because these parameters are going to give my fields values. So here under public, this is where you're going to go constructor create, open the brackets, oops, And here you are going to list these parameters. So I've completed the constructor here at the bottom. I'm just going to delete this one. And the question said I needed an title and an ISBN number. You can see they've both been stored here as strings. So my parameters here are string because my fields that it's going to give values to are string. Then we needed the cost per book, and that is this parameter or attribute here at the top where it says F cost, so it's going to be real. And then my last parameter here is whether it's available as an ebook or not. And if I have a look at my field, F ebook, I can see here that it is Boolean, so I'm going to make this Boolean as well. You will see that in this example, the number of parameters here don't match up with your fields. We don't need to give all the fields values using our constructor, but you could be asked to give them all values, or it could even be a constructor without any parameters. So they don't have to match a number here. Once you are done creating this constructor create, you're going to push Control, Shift, and C. And that will open up for us the skeleton code. So what you will see is, without what I'm highlighting now, you will see this heading and then the begin and end. And then what you need to do is you need to make sure that your parameters are giving the correct fields values. So your fields or your attributes are going to start with F. Remember, they go first, so they have to be on the left of the assignment statement, F for first. And then you will have on the right, you will have your parameters. And the question also asked us to set the number of books sold to 0. So even though I didn't receive P sold as a parameter, I'm going to use F sold in here and set it to 0. It's very important that you follow the instructions on the paper and don't create any more or less parameters than they are asking. And also then to double check your data types according to the fields at the top. You will see the majority of the time that these methods are in public, and only when we're told to do it, we will put the methods in private. So let's go to the next question. Next question says, calculate and set the selling price attribute of the book. So I'm going to make a change to the selling price field. So attribute and field means the same thing. And the method will receive, there is my parameter, the percentage by which the cost price needs to increase by. Now, this question is not telling you that it is returning an answer. So the word return will mean it's a function. But if the word return does not appear in this question, you will make it a procedure. So it's going to be in public, as I'm not told otherwise. And I'm going to create this heading, procedure, selling price, put the parameter in there. A percentage will probably be real. And then push Control Shift C. And I complete my selling price by saying, give the selling price a value, using the cost and increasing it by a certain percentage. My next question is telling me to calculate and return the profit. The word return immediately indicates that it is a function. So to return, I'm going to use a function, and there's the name of my function, and it does not indicate that it is receiving a value. So therefore I have no parameters here. Remember, every function needs a data type. Now when I'm calculating a profit and I'm going to use cost, that will probably be real, so that is why the function calculate profit has a real data type. This class, further this question is asking that this method should only be accessible to the class unit. What that means is you are going to declare it under private. I'll quickly show you in Delphi. There we go, there's the function, calculate profit, and it's under private after my declaration of my fields, and it has a real data type. So I'm going to push Control Shift C, and that will take me to the skeleton code of my function. Remember that every function needs a result. So I have result here is assigned to, and I'm taking the number of books sold at the selling price that was set, and deducting from that the number of books sold and the original cost, and that will give me my profit. Important that your result of a function gets a value and that it will have the same data type as the data type of your function. The next question is asking me to write a method that will return the selling price attribute. So that means the word return means as a function. I don't see the word receive in here, so there's no parameters. And this question could have been reworded in a different way. They could have asked you to write an accessor method. So an accessor method means it's a function and that it will return a certain value. So it would say write an accessor method for the selling price. So it's returning one of my fields, and the only code in here is going to be result is assigned to, and then one of your fields or your attributes. So the function here has a real data type because selling price is real. And accessor methods, we are going to start with a get. So you're going to create this accessor method, which will always be in public, and then push Control-Shift-C, and you are going to complete this code here. Result is assigned to if selling. The next question here is asking me to write a method that receives, here we go, there is my parameter, number of books. It would be integer because I don't have 1.5 book. I have 1 book or I have 2 books. So therefore my parameter here will be an integer. And add it to the number of books sold field. Now this is called a mutator method. So the question could also include the word mutator. Mutators are always public because my main form wants to get access to them. And then it will be procedures. And then the majority of the time they have parameters, but they don't need parameters. And they will start with the word set. And then I will push Control-Shift-C, and I will add to the existing number of books the new number of books that I have received through a parameter. This is just an example of, let's say we had a constructor create, but it didn't have any parameters. I don't need you to add this to your program. A mutator method would do the same job as the constructor did. So it will have some parameters, and then you will set the fields according to those parameters. The last type of method that we will have is our ToString. So ToStrings are always public. The function is really to return the fields of your class in a certain format. So you will be either given a ToString that is correct, or you could be given a ToString with some errors in it, and then you have to fix it. Or you could be asked to write one from scratch. And this is an example of writing your own. You are going to see here, write a method that returns the attributes of the class in the following format. And they give you a little example here of what your ToString should output. On the left here, well, at the top here, you see book information. That's a heading, and a little hidden question here is that there's an empty line between book information and the title. The values here are the labels for what I'm going to display, and what you see in these funny little brackets is field names. So that's how they indicate that these are field names. So you're not actually typing in title of book. In here you're going to put your field F title. So just a little bit more about functions or ToStrings. They will be functions. They usually don't, I haven't seen one with a parameter, and their data type will be a string. So if I now push Control-Shift-C after creating that signature in public, I will then complete my ToString. Now remember, functions need a result, and the result in this case has to be string because my function's data type is string. And I start off with my heading book information. Remember, there was an open line, so we'll have 2 #10s after book information. 1 #10 or 13, it doesn't matter which one you're using. We'll create the enter, and then the second one will create the empty line. And then I can build onto this string. So result is assigned to, in other words, take this information and add onto it the title, label, and then the title, the field, and an enter. And so I'll add the ISBN, number of books sold. Remember that if sold is an integer, so you have to interstring it. And then cost price, you're going to use float string F. Don't use float string anywhere in your program. Somewhere within our papers, we are going to get marks for using float string F. So you first have the variable that you want to display, then the format, FF currency for if there's a rand value in front of it, or FF fixed if it's not a rand currency. And then you can use the default comma 10. That just allocates how many digits, including your decimal point, I can display. And then the last argument here of float string F is a 2 because 2 decimal places were shown, and then a plus #10. And I did the same here for the selling price and for the profit. But for the profit, remember we had a little function, calculate profit, that was a local or a private encapsulated function. And we are able to call this function in my ToString to display the profit. The last part of my question is asking me to display whether a book is available as an ebook or not. And my field if ebook was a Boolean variable that we declared under private. And I can use this if ebook was true, I will add to my result it's available as an ebook, else it's available as a hard copy book. In an if statement, these Boolean variables, whether it's here or in another question, you don't have to put equals to true, but you can do it if you want to. It will automatically test if a Boolean variable, or even, let's say, your check property of a checkbox is true without adding the true in there. So the following linking is usually done for you, but I'm going to show you how to do it anyway. So at the top of this unit, just in case you are asked to do it, you are going to copy out the name of the class. And then you are going to paste it in your main form. Let me just scroll up under your uses. So there it is, my class name. And then this is also usually given, we will declare an object of our class. So in this case, we're calling it book, and this is the data type tbooks. Now, if you remember, when we created the books, I called it tbooks there at the top. So before you continue, you need to first get input from the user. So I'm in the display button, this button here, and get input from the user from the object that they completed. And then your question will ask you to instantiate the object. Now, what this means is you have to call the constructor create. If you don't call the constructor create, you can't call any of the other methods. Here's a little tip to show you how to remember how to call the constructor create, because without doing it correctly, your program might run, but it is not going to produce any output for this whole question. So we're going to copy this out, the declaration of the object, and you paste it down here. You change that colon by adding an equal sign, so now it's an assignment statement, and you type in .create. Now, if all the code above this line is correct, you're going to get some hints. And these are the arguments that we need to send it. So in our class, these were the parameters, and we need to match them what I call in nod. Number, so there's 1, 2, 3, 4 parameters. So I have to have 4 arguments. The O of nod stands for order. So I need to put the title first, the ISBN second, the cost third, and the ebook last. And then the D for nod stands for data type. So my arguments here were 2 strings, and then followed by a real value and then a Boolean variable. So my arguments here need to be followed in nod, number, order, and data type, or your program won't work. So this is now my constructor create, and then the question asked me to now set the selling price. The person entered the percentage that the cost must increase by in an edit box, and now I'm using that as an argument for my selling price procedure. You will see that this constructor create, this is the last time you're going to use the type. After this, you're going to use book to call your methods. And if you're calling a procedure, you need to make sure that it's not part of another statement. It stands on its own, almost like ink I count. That's a procedure that you've used before. It stands on its own. I was then asked to display the information of this book. So this is where I call my ToString, book.ToString. ToString was a function, and any function needs to be part of another statement. ToString, since they're displaying, will probably be part of an object like a rich edit or a show message or a label. But if you're calling any other function, it has to be part of another statement, maybe assigned to a variable used in an if statement and so on. So this is calling my ToString. And then if I just open it up here, you were also asked to display the selling price as part of the label of the edit box. This was a labeled edit. So it has a property called edit label. And then in the caption, I'm displaying number of books sold as I was indicated by the question paper. And then I'm calling my get selling price. And get selling price was real. And we could use FF currency on that to show the Rand symbol. It's a good time now to test your program and enter in these values. And when you click the display button, you should get the ToString here. Currently, I've not sold any books. And also my profit is 0 because I haven't sold any books. And then you will see here your label of this edit has been changed to show the selling price. The next part of this question is now asking us to code in the button called BT and add books. And I'm going to clear the rich edit first, because when you have a look at the output, you will see that the ToString is right at the top of that rich edit. So string to int, the input from the user, how many books were sold. And then I had to change the number of books sold using my set books sold and the input from the user. So again, set books sold was a procedure, so we need to call it on its own, and then I redisplay my ToString, which will now contain my updated values. I was also asked to clear the number of books sold and then set the cursor into the number of books sold. So now you can run your program again. Now, important here is I have tested the display button. So let's say I wanted to say, okay, I've sold 10 books. If I now click on add books sold, my program's going to crash. It says access violation. You probably have seen this error before when you were coding with arrays and you're trying to access something that does not yet exist. So in order to use any one of our objects here, we need to always call the constructor create first. Then only are we able to click on any other button that contains code where we call one of the methods of our class. So now I'm able to add the number of books sold. You'll see my edit box is cleared and my cursor is ready there for me to start typing. But you'll also see my ToString is showing the updated number of books sold, and this time I'm making a profit. I've left this available as ebook off, so therefore it shows hard copy. If I click here, make it an ebook, and let's say it's 100 Rand, and the percentage was 50, and I click on display, I am now creating a new object of my class. I have a little mistake here because I haven't cleared my rich edit before I displayed. So let's go and fix that quickly. I've now added a clear for my rich edit so that when I run it, my new information of my book will display at the top. Now this is your time to practice, so go to www.education.gov.za, download the past papers there for IT. This is the final of November 2018. And I am here on page 13. This is our question 3 that we've done today. Object-oriented programming. And then at the top here, you'll see some descriptions of the class. And then you will have a description of our attributes or our fields, which you can also see in the given class. And then here starts the first question. So what I want you to do is I want you to start with a constructor and see if you can create this constructor method. So this is what we've learned today, and you now know how to do your class. Please always do it first. Then take note of the word receive for parameters and return for functions. And then don't do more than the question is asking you to do. Study the line of code for instantiating the object. Remember your constructor needs to run first. And then take note of how functions and procedures are called. And then lastly, take note of those hidden questions where we have empty lines or maybe a dot clear. This is a very useful link for you, and not only for IT but for all of your subjects. You go to education.gov.za and then under information there, or I think it's under curriculum, you will find National Senior Certificate, and if you go in there you'll find all the past papers. And next we'll do some SQL. We'll see how long that lesson would be. I'm not sure how much we can fit into our 45-minute lesson, but we'll work our way through SQL. And lastly, you can follow us on social media using the following links, and you can also search for the live recordings on YouTube by searching for Africa Teen Gigs. Hope to see you soon.